Paging Dr. Caplan. Paging Dr. Caplan.
Hello, Dr. Caplan. Some medical professionals who know I use cannabis say you shouldn't vape, you should smoke. Others tell me you shouldn't smoke, you should vape. What do you recommend?
The short answer is generally I recommend vaping flower over vaping concentrates. And here's why. Between vaporizing flower, vaporization of concentrates, what most people these days call vaping, and smoking, there are lots of confusing choices out there. For most people, the goal with breathing anything in is to have a quick effect that doesn't take as long as edibles sometimes can take for a therapeutic effect to begin. Instead, with vaporizing flower, vaping concentrates, or smoking, the effects are almost instantaneous. But which one is healthier? The clear answer, in my view, is vaporization of flower. This is where you take the dried cannabis flower, and rather than putting them in a joint or a pipe to smoke, instead it goes into a vaporization oven, basically a miniature toaster oven that can heat the flower up and boil off the active ingredients at boiling point temperatures. Just like the water on your stove will start turning to steam at 212 Fahrenheit, cannabinoids start to boil at known and very predictable temperatures. If you know those temperatures, you can predict what you'll breathe in, and if you learn about those specific cannabinoids coming up into your lungs, you can start to predict the effects you'll experience. This is vaporization of flower. If you use concentrated cannabis instead of flower, that is, pre-condensed cannabinoids without the flower parts, a sort of espresso version of cannabis, you get a much more intense effect from breathing them in, and often you don't need as much to achieve a therapeutic effect. Depending on your tolerance, though, sometimes vaping concentrates can be more like drinking a quintuple espresso. They're pretty intense and often over the top for most novice cannabis consumers. They are efficient, but you're breathing in a very dense cloud of concentrated medicine, and it can be somewhat overwhelming for the body to clean out. The literature does suggest that there's some recovery time for the body after prolonged vaping of concentrates. Last, and certainly the lowest on the healthy totem pole, is smoking. Smoking is, as it sounds, combusting the cannabis to the point of burning, which is 10 times the temperature required to lift it off the plant and into the air. Instead, some of the healthy molecules we like mutate into some products we don't necessarily want in our bodies. People often enjoy the intensity of smoking because a high percentage of the products is just burned right away from the process of igniting it. So the end result is something a little more mild than vaping. But there is a consistent signal in the scientific literature that smoking comes with real irritation of the breathing tubes, and in some studies, tied to long-term concerns. It's important to be even-handed, though, that smoking cannabis is not even in the same league as smoking cigarettes. There's no nicotine here, and we don't see cancer that is clearly associated with smoking cannabis. So, to sum up, I recommend vaping flower over vaping concentrates, and both forms of vaping over smoking, although moderation is probably the best takeaway message here. Compared to many traditional forms of therapy, any form of cannabis might be better. That being said, within the many forms of cannabis, there are certainly options that are healthier than others. And simple life experience can help replace fear and doubt with understanding and relief. It's important to have an open mind because the benefits of these therapies can be really dramatic, and in many cases, life-changing. All too often, in my experience, I see that people worry about what others will think of them using cannabis to help themselves, occasionally to the point of complete paralysis. Beyond the challenge of matching certain illnesses with beneficial cannabis products, so many people also battle what is a debilitating social stigma that alienates anyone turning to cannabis for relief as an outlier.